to the timeless history of surfing. This is the introduction. You know, surfing could be regarded as like a golden thread that walks with us through life. A thread that basically captures that special moment in our life. Like a surfing safari with friends is a special moment, isn't it? Or an endless corduroy morning with those waves right to the horizon, you know, and the spray mist hovering over the shoreline. That can be a very special moment. Or about a late takeoff that you didn't think that you were going to make, telling all your friends. Or about being spat out of a tube that makes you ecstatically throw your hands in the air. Or perhaps it's an exotic location and finding that perfect wave. That's a special moment. Yes, of course, surfing's all those things. However, this video series, even though we do talk about all those things that I've just mentioned, is really more about the stoke of surfing, the camaraderie of surfing, or about the tribe or community of surfing. But more than anything, it's not so much about the outstanding or professional surfer, not so much about the surfer that entertains the crowd, but rather about the surfer who's in the crowd, about the surfer that watches the contest rather than the surfer that's in the contest. This series is about you and me, and about our pathway through life that has this golden thread called surfing woven through it. Now, I hardly have any photos, struggling to find video content, had no experience in this, no talent, no budget, but what I do have, after more than 50 years of surfing, is plenty of amazing experiences and stories to share with you, and plenty of amazing people that I've met. So this is their story as well, and probably it's a little bit like your story too, I would imagine. And so I dedicate this 12-part series to Mr. and Mrs. Average Surfer.
Come on!
Now, being Mr. and Mrs. Average Surfer doesn't necessarily mean that you're not a particularly good surfer. You may well be a great surfer. No, Mr. Average Surfer means that you may not live near the coast currently because of various reasons. That you don't necessarily work in the surfing industry. That you have a 9-to-5 job at the bank, for instance. You have family commitments. Your job takes you to obscure places miles away from the coastline. That only provides you with sort of rare moments in the surf. It's about the surfing businessman or apprentice or professional person. It's about Mr. Surfs whenever they're able and Mrs. Average Surfer. Just like these guys, for instance. Have you ever wondered what it would be like living in a cold climate and regularly driving past those snow-covered mountains on the way to surf in 5-degree water? Well, there's a breed of surfers who do just that regularly, and they love it, believe it or not. Meet Christian, Jürgen, Sigmund, Andreas and Erland. Yes, these are the Norwegian boys who live quite a few hours away from the surf in the city of Oslo, capital of Norway. Who work in banking, IT and the building industry just like you and me, regular guys. You know, Norway borders the Arctic Ocean, and Oslo is a fair distance from the open ocean. Do you know what? They just jump in their car and off they go past those snow-covered mountains, like I said, to their favourite surf spot, Hotovika on the west coast. About an 8-hour drive. Water temperature varies 5 to 15 degrees Celsius or 40 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. pretty damn cold anyway, but you know what, they love it. Now just think about this for a moment. The city of Oslo, where they come from, is on a parallel with Alaska, would you believe? In fact, northern Norway is well into the Arctic Circle. I mean, the water just looks cold here, doesn't it? And this is midnight in northern Norway and the sun's still shining, would you believe? But you know, a surf trip is pure fun for them. Here they are chasing the local goats down the road on their way to the beach, 8-hour drive. That's what the stoke of surfing's all about for them, just having fun. Here they are, setting up camp at their favourite beach, Hottavik.
Hell yeah.
Well, the next morning they wake up and guess what, it's flat. Who cares? They go out for a surf anyway in 10-degree water. And the next day, well, the swell picks up. Yesterday there was no swell, today we have a considerable swell starting to push in.
Huh?
The trouble is now it's hard trying to get out. But you know what? These guys just don't care because they're stoked on surfing. They just don't care because they're having fun. Christian, Erlen, Jürgen, Sigmund and Andreas and the Norwegian boys are just another awesome arm in our worldwide surfing community. Comrades, brothers, fellow surfers just like you and me. Actually, I spiced up this photo a little bit too, to just let you know that they do have a short summer as well. Okay, now let's head to South Africa for a moment and meet John Sutton.
Hello.
And his family. John and I often surf Cape Town together, where we lived for several years. John lived in a place called Sea Point, and here's his classic Citroen car that we would often go out in. And we would often surf the Atlantic side of the peninsula together in a place called Long Beach. Actually, you might remember this beach called Long Beach. It was in that awesome movie The Endless Summer, which I just happen to be watching right now.
Place Long Beach and paddle out for a few waves. Conditions here resemble Northern California with heavy kelp beds outside. The kelp cuts the chop and makes the waves inside smoother, although it makes them smaller.
And there's Mike Ensign doing the most beautiful backhand turn, best turn in the whole movie, I think.
This is on the Atlantic side of the Cape Peninsula, and although it's summertime, the water temperature is only 54 degrees.
We would also surf a place called Inner and Outer Com. Inner Comke was a pleasant, small, fun wave, but Outer Com, man, that was a notoriously heavy-duty wave. In fact, my closest call with death ever was surfing this wave. I had just arrived in Cape Town and we drove up to the point and saw what seemed like a beautiful 6 to 8 foot left peeling around the bay. And so I put on my board shorts and I ran down the hill, and with great anticipation ran out to the end of the point, and then I jumped in the water. But I couldn't believe it. The water was about 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, it was freezing. The day temperature was about 35 degrees Celsius. Hot day. The water, man, it was cold. After hesitating for a moment, I thought, well, I might as well give it a go. I started to paddle out the back. I remember starting to get that uneasy feeling as I paddled out through the lineup, because what I thought was an easy 6 to 8 foot mellow wave from the shore was now starting to turn into a 10 to 12 foot top to bottom bone crusher. And I was getting a little nervous, out there by myself, super cold water and a totally unfamiliar wave. Well, eventually I plucked up the courage and paddled onto a particularly large wave which pitched out, and I went over the falls on a solid 12 foot wave. The wave drove me right to the bottom and I was swirling around all over the place under the water. Suddenly I realised that I was trapped 15 feet under the water with my leg rope wrapped around tree trunk sized kelp. You see, in 1972 we never had Velcro on our leg ropes. We tied our leg ropes to our ankles with a knot, and this knot had majorly tightened with all the tension. I remember panicking as I tried to unsuccessfully undo the knot with frozen fingers, but I just couldn't budge it. Time began to tick away and I was now really starting to fear the worst as the knot refused to budge. Eventually I found myself thinking about friends and family as my whole life started to flash through my mind. After about a minute, I found myself going into a strangely peaceful state, and things started to go into slow motion. I just couldn't feel that knot anymore with my fingers, they were just too cold. And I went into a dreamy sort of state. I figured that the end was getting pretty near. I started to feel myself drifting away. I was drifting away, drifting away.